Arceli Rosario is the president of the Adventist University of the Philippines. She served as professor and chair of the Education Department of the Adventist International Institute of Advanced Studies in the Philippines for 10 years. She was also a high school principal, vice president for academic affairs, and college president. She has taught educational administration, TESOL, and research courses. She also trained and mentored in qualitative research, leadership, and teaching. She published books, book chapters, and journal articles. Dr. Rosario is a co-editor of the Sage Handbook of Qualitative Research in the Asian Context, which was released in May 2022. She was the second president of Asian Qualitative Research in Asia, and is the incumbent president of the Adventist Human Subject Research Association, in the Southern Asia-Pacific Division of Seventh-day Adventists. Please welcome Dr. Rosario.
Good afternoon, everybody. How are you doing? Are you enjoying so far? Thank you very much, Dr. Swansea, for the kind introduction. I would like to welcome you all to our keynote number 2. Our topic is qualitative research in the Asian context and insider's perspective. I would like to show to you actually only 2 pictures of the Adventist University of the Philippines. This is our gate, and this is one of our buildings. It is not very far from here, so I would like to invite you, if you have time, drop by. It's this is the Aguinaldo Road. There's another road down there. I think we call that the Tagaytay Santa Rosa Road. You will pass by our university. All right, so let us first define the terms. What do we mean by insider researcher? I would like to ask you, when you conducted your study, the study that you presented or will present here, may I ask you, did you take the insider role or the outsider role? Were you an insider or an outsider? Okay, you think first. All right. How many of you were insiders? Raise your hands. Okay. How many of you were outsiders? Raise your hand. All right. Maybe it's hard for you to decide. So we will first define the terms. So what do we mean by insider? It says here that an insider researcher is one of the members to the group being studied. For example, Ransulin and Anli presented a study on HIV, people with HIV. If they have HIV, then they are insider researchers. If they do not have HIV, they are outsider researchers. Okay. For example, I study women university presidents. Okay. For now, I am university president, and I want to study women university presidents. Question: am I an insider researcher? Yes, I am an insider researcher. So, an insider researcher belongs to the group that is being studied. But group can mean many things. So HIV, that's one group. Women leaders, that's another group. But the whole of Asia is one group. So suppose you are an Asian and you are studying a phenomenon that is happening in Asia. Are you an insider? Yes, you are an insider. Now, Dr. Jen has been here But you're Asian also, Dr. Ken, right? So let me change my example. Dr. Safari, are you an insider researcher, Dr. Safari? You conduct a study here in Asia. Are you an insider researcher? Be careful, be careful. Yes and no.
Study of the universities that went inside.
Yes.
So my definition, I do not have a cultural understanding. Even they are the faculty here.
Even for 9 years, you are a slow learner. Alright. So that is it. That is it. Because it's not only belonging to the group, it is sharing characteristics or aspects of the group. It depends on how, it's like an eclipse, how close you really are. All right? So mark that one, because you may be an Asian, born here, lived here, doing a study here in Asia, but you may not be totally an insider. That's why in the book of Dr. Cohen-Miller and her colleague, who even actually I know only Dr. Cohen-Miller, she contacted me to write this topic on the insider-outsider spectrum. She asked me to share an experience, how I experienced the insider-outsider spectrum. So I wrote. For my thesis, I decided to retrieve and record the oral literature of my mother's home place. I asked my mom to come with me. For her, it would be the first time to visit since she left 34 years ago. For me, it would be the first time to see the place. But when we arrived, we got a warm welcome from almost everywhere, even from the municipal hall where I secured the permit to gather data. I felt like an insider. They treated me like an insider. Old and young volunteered to share with me their stories, their songs, and their jobs. The sharing happened in various settings, while shelling corn from early to late evenings during the wake of a dead person by the side of the rice paddies or under shady trees. There was one incident, however, where I discovered how quickly, like in a fleet of a moment, a researcher could transition from being an insider to an outsider. For me, it was not my conscious doing, nor of the people around me. In hindsight, I realized it was about who they were and who I was, that there was a part of me that did not perfectly fit. I was joining a group of village folks that was going house to house with a carved image of a patron saint. The group offered songs and prayers to each house. I tried to say at the back, firstly because I did not know how to say the prayers and how to sing the songs, and secondly because of my religious orientation. Several of the young girls pulled me in, showed me the prayer book and the song book, and encouraged me to participate. They tried to embrace me into their circle, but I felt like a fake. I was not sure if we sensed the divide between us, but for me, I felt like I was on the other side of a big, wide gulf. That night, I lay awake for a long time and asked myself several questions. Who I was, why I was there, how I could be who I was, and still be true to what I was doing. I did not find all the answers, but in the morning I had peace. I resolved to be respectful to others for who they were and also to honor who I was. In spite of that incident, I considered myself an insider. Being one, I was able to easily gain access to the village, into my participants' homes, and into their hearts. I gathered a rich collection of the village oral literature, but my greatest takeaway was that I gained a better understanding of who I was and a deeper appreciation of my heritage. This heightened understanding and appreciation, I realized, came about because in the process of data collection and analysis, there were times I stepped back and took an outsider's role and to reflect, to ask questions, to engage in intentional wanderings, and to attempt to find answers. Okay? So now, let's begin with who am I? Who are you? We are beyond our names. Yes, our names are definitive of who we are, but we are more than names. We are more than the place where we come from. We are more than the names of our father and our mother. We are so much more, so that when we come and introduce ourselves, the truth is, honestly, I do not remember your name. Especially when you say it in a hurry and you do not take time to spare. So next time you say, I am Kenneth, Kenneth. Why? Because I am a slow learner. So who am I? Now, let me give you an example. This I will show who am I in a few slides, but it took me a long time to write this. So don't think that it was easy for me to know who I am. I am an Asian. I belong to a region of diverse people. I think peoples. Free-loving yet colonized. Already free yet still shackled. Rich yet poor. Wise yet not appreciating their unique wisdom. Distinct yet not fully embracing their identity. That's who am I. I love my country, but I like to go to the United States. I am a Filipino. I am deeply patriotic. So that even if I go to the US, you cannot convince me to live there and work there. Why? Because I am patriotic, according to me. I am always moved by the suffering of my people. When I see prosperity in other countries, I ask, what has gone wrong in my country? Can it be corrected? How can my people live better lives? So, recently I went to the US and the host toured me around Lumalinda area, very beautiful. The houses were very beautiful, but I kept on asking, why are our houses in the Philippines not like this? That was my question. So I could not enjoy. I could not enjoy the beautiful scenery around me. I was always thinking, why is the Philippines not like this? I am a woman. I champion women's liberation. I believe that women should live in an environment where they are respected and valued, where they can grow and actualize their God-given gifts, where they can impact positive change without the shackles of discrimination and oppression, where they can freely exercise the gifts of womanhood. What is that? To be sexy. I'm not to be mocked for being sexy. Yes. I am a Seventh-day Adventist. My thoughts, my feelings, my speech, my action, and my decision are informed by my faith, which is anchored on the Bible, and my experience with God. That is who am I. Now, why did I articulate this? Because all of this will impact the research that I do as an insider. This will impact what kind of topics I will write about. This will impact what kind of methodology I will use. Okay? Now, what are the advantages of being an insider researcher? There are many. When you are an insider researcher, you are passionate about the topic, so that even though you are met with many difficulties, you will not give up. You will keep on. No money, you will proceed, right? You will make a loan. I'm now being contextual. That's why my fellow Filipinos are laughing. Because in the Philippines, we say loan is a privilege you want to enjoy to the fullest. Okay, so we are passionate because we are part of the phenomenon. We are part of the problem, and we want it to be solved. If we are using appreciative inquiry, we are part of the strength. We are part of the celebration. Nothing can stop us. All right? So that's the advantage. What else? Depth of understanding of the phenomenon, the context, and the participant. That's the advantage. For example, we had a recent defense. Dr. Ken was chairing the defense. It was a narrative inquiry. We invited a guest. He's not part of the panel, but we allowed him to sit in the executive session. His question was, why is it that you did not use transactional leadership theory? Dr. Ken, after that, I kept on reflecting, why didn't he use transactional leadership theory? Why did he use spiritual leadership theory? And I think he used also transformational leadership theory. Why? And then I read who the researcher was, and I found out that he was once a principal in the research setting, so he was an insider. He had a depth of understanding of the phenomenon. He knew that the transactional leadership theory would not explain the findings. You understand that? So even your choice of your theoretical framework will be influenced by your knowledge of the phenomenon. What is transactional theory? Transactional theory is because this was about principal retirees, the retention of principals, why they stayed until their retirement. And the question was, could it be that they stayed because of the retirement package? But that finding did not come out, but there's a way, it's a good thing among Adventist retiree principals. The retirement package, good retirement package, that was not the reason why they stayed. It was instead commitment, commitment, opportunities for spiritual development, and all these things. And he, even from the beginning, he did not know yet the findings, yet the researcher was able to choose the right theories. Why? Because he knew the context. He had a deep understanding of the phenomenon and the participants. Okay? Next. I want to emphasize that knowledge of the culture, knowledge of the language, because suppose you are an American coming from, I recall the research studies by Dr. Elizabeth Rayleigh. She's an American. She does studies here in Asia and Africa. But you see, when you are an outsider, there are some disadvantages in terms of language. You see, language is very important in research. That's why, we say so much is lost in translation. Because even though we conduct the research in the language of the people, but still when we present, when we write the report, so much is lost in translation. That's why I advocate that, like if you read research studies done in New Zealand, they always preserve the statements in the local language, and then provide the translation. Maybe you want to do that also, to be an authentic insider researcher. Okay, next is access to the participants and the research site. Do you agree? When you are a researcher, an insider researcher, it is easier for you to access to your participants. If you are an HIV, I would say, do we use the term victim now? No? Do we still use HIV? Huh? People living with HIV, that's the term now. If you are a person living with HIV, it is easier for you to identify the participants. If you are an LGBTQ, so that means that especially for scientific topics, you will have easier access to your participants if you are an insider participant. So what do you do? If you are not an insider participant, yet you want to study this group, what do? You include in your team an insider. Include in your team an insider. And also, you have an easier access to the research side. You remember? I was able to access to my participants when I did my thesis. Why? Because my mother grew up in that place. And I took my mother with me. Okay? Now, rapport with the participants. It's easy. Even though you do not know each other, it will be easy, especially if you speak also the language. Another is access to rich, authentic data. If you speak the language, you are an insider, you belong to the group, they will tell you lots of stories. The disadvantage is some of this you do not actually need. No? But that's it, rich and authentic data. Another, your clear understanding enables you to probe for richer description. This one, though, can be an advantage, can also be a disadvantage. I will tell you later why. All right. There may be other advantages, but now we proceed to the disadvantages. We said it's good to be an insider, but there are also disadvantages. For example, like what? Making assumptions about the meanings of events and not seeking clarification. Why? Because you are already bright. You understand what is bright? You already know the answer. So that your participant is still only starting, you will say, yeah. Why? Because you already know. All right, next. Assuming he or she knows participants' views and issues. It's related to number one. Number three, being too close to the phenomenon. The tendency to contaminate the data. I'll give you an example. You are studying the research culture of your university. You are one of the professors of that university, right? And you go to your participant. And then I say, Dr. Kim, what support do you receive from the administration in order to do research? And Dr. Kim pauses and thinks, and I am impatient. I already know the answer. So I say, Dr. Kim, haven't you received? How about writing leave? Yeah, 2 weeks writing leave, Dr. Kim? And Dr. Kim says, yes, very good, Dr. Kim. What else, Dr. Kim? And Dr. Kim takes time. And then I give the answer. I keep on giving the answer. Why? Because I know the phenomenon. And besides, I want to help my participants. Yes. And I want to ensure that my participant gives the right answer. And who has the right answer? Because I am an instructor. Right? Okay. Begin to close inability to see the big picture. Now you know, when we are conducting the data, yes, we are looking at the data, but we also go beyond the data. And Dr. Swansea always tells us that. Go beyond the data. What is the implication of this? You do not think only of what is happening in your context, in your school, or in the school where you are getting the data from. You think about, so what is also happening in other places? But because you are so absorbed with your data is very precious to you because that is your data. You cannot see the big picture. And as a researcher, that is one ability that we should develop. Next, knowing too much. Hence, the tendency to reveal too much knowledge even in our report. Even self-knowledge, not data. You did not gather this kind of data. But as you review the data, you say, this one is missing. I will add this one. I will add this one. I will add this one. You are now making yourself not just a researcher, but you are already the participant and you are not even using autoethnography. Okay? Now, being blindsided by some issues, failure to make the familiar strange. Have you heard that phrase? Making the familiar strange. Now, AQRA has been very familiar to you. We have been together for 7 long years. Correct? So that AQRA has become very familiar. But my challenge to you is, what is strange about AQRA? Can you see it? Can you tell me now? What is strange about AQRA? Any one of you? Can you raise your hand? Do you find something strange in AQRA? Oh, everything looks familiar. Right? Everything looks familiar. Yes? But a true researcher is, he or she has the ability to make the familiar strange. I remember Dr. Sunya Pukufuka, he mentioned about the droning of the plane. Ayas is like the pathway of planes. The first time you're at Ayas, every time the plane passes by, you say, oh, a plane passed by. 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, you do not hear the plane passing by anymore. Because everything has become familiar. And when you are conducting research and everything is familiar, what will you report? In your observation, nothing to report. There's no phenomenon. There's no phenomenon going on. Everything is familiar. So, just like, I always tell when I do the conduct phenomenological training, I say, as researchers, let us develop a phenomenological attitude, even if it is not phenomenology. What is a phenomenological attitude? Example, my husband, one Sabbath morning, my husband comes out of of our bedroom. I was in the living room. I looked at him and I said, wow, he's so handsome. That's the phenomenological attitude. Now, don't you notice that I have a brooch here? Nobody mentioned that to me. None of you. You just say, hi, mom. Nobody said, wow, your watch is white. Even that, you don't have to say it's beautiful, expensive. You don't have to say that. But to prove that you are real qualitative researcher, you notice something. See, look at that. Or, nobody told me, there was one. That I look more beautiful with my hair. Now, why? Because through all these years, my hair was straight. You didn't even notice that. And now it has more volume. See? And they said, it's beautiful, more becoming. Actually, somebody said, ma'am, you are now presidentiable. Yes? So that is the researcher's attitude. Phenomenological. You find, you make the familiar strange. For example, I found it strange that Rance during his presentation was shown with emotion. See, isn't that strange that a presenter would cry over his findings? So that's it. Okay? So, remember, when you are too close, and now you become too close to AQRA, there's nothing familiar anymore. But remember, make familiar the familiar strange. Next, failure to probe. Sometimes your participants say, you are an insider, you are conducting a study in your own university, or here in Asia, oh, you are Filipino, you know already, you are already aware, you are an Asian, you know that. And then you say, because you are proud, you say, yeah, I know. Even do it. Because you are embarrassed to say, actually, I do not know. But a researcher has no embarrassment. A researcher should admit, I'm sorry, I do not know. Give me the details. Right? Next, access to sensitive information, inability to handle it. Now, suppose I talk to a fellow Filipino, to a fellow woman, to a Filipino, to a fellow university president. Will I get rich data? Will I? Several layers of membership. Will I? Yes. But with that, I will receive also sensitive information. Now, I may not be able to handle it. All right? Especially when it is really like the HIV, or suppose because you have strong rapport, your participant identifies with you, your participant will say, you know, I killed my husband. What will you do? Does that happen? Yes. Or, you know, not related to the topic, you know, my husband raped my daughter. What will you do? Why? Because your participant has identified with you because you are an insider. Possibility of making premature conclusion. Yeah? Issues with confidentiality and privacy. Now we say, when we report our findings, qualitative study, we can use I. In my university, now I say, blah, 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 Arceli, Rosario. And I say, in my university, now, will the readers identify my university? Of course. That's why the suggestion is report in the third person. So it's like contrary to what we have learned. So I leave that to you. It will be a discussion in the next topic, another discussion I mean. But there are more issues with confidentiality and privacy when you are an insider researcher. Now, how to conduct research in Asia as an insider? Define who you are. not for the sake of your readers. Although we say, disclose your reflexivity for the sake of your readers. In the trainings, I always say that, but now I say more for your sake, so that you understand who you are. And before you start, continue this process of self-reflection through personal memoing or writing your analytic memos. Write down also your reflexivity. When we published our study on teen motherhood, we made a very big mistake. One of our teen motherhood, topic teen motherhood. Then we had an Adventist participant. We were excited. We said, oh, this one, when we interview this person, she must be very remorseful. Imagine teen motherhood, right? Then Adventist. So when we interviewed, we asked, when you learned that you were pregnant, what did you feel? Happy. That was her answer. Her answer did not match our answer. So we were, how about your partner? Happy also. Did not match. How about your parents? Must match, right? Match their answer. Our answer was different. But their answer was happy also. So I continued probing, and my questions were really out of place. I was behaving like I was not educated. Not only not like a qualitative, not educated. I noticed that after several questions, I stopped. And then I said, okay, is it okay? We will start our conversation here. We will come back to you later. And so when we were marching back to the hotel, my team members were saying, Ma'am, why did you stop? It was going on very nicely. And then we said, no, we will stop. We will ask ourselves, what is our view of teen motherhood? What is our view of our teen mothers? How do we view them? So we talk and talk and talk, and we wrote down. We published the paper. The editor was Dr. Rosario. And he said, write a reflexivity. I wanted to strangle his neck. I said, none of the articles, none. He never required that from anybody. Now, why from us? But it was good. We already had our notes. And it was like urgent, it was deadline, etc. And you know, when you give your deadline 12 o'clock midnight, you should submit it exactly 12 o'clock. So I had many instances when the declaration of Ronald. So that's my experience with him. So I wrote it and I sent, and I'm so happy he did that. You know why? And now I give that as an example. Yeah. So we really sat down because I said we cannot continue until we sit down and ask ourselves what is really our stand toward our teen mothers. And we articulated our stand that we should respect them and we should honor them as preserve their dignity as human beings. Okay? Now, take steps to minimize your researcher's bias as an insider through the different stages of the research process. Establish trustworthiness, and I'm putting here one framework. There are other frameworks. You can adapt the Lincoln and Guba framework. You can adapt the other frameworks as well. And there are ways here. By the way, I will share my PowerPoint. There are ways here how you will meet credibility, dependability, transferability, and conformability. Related specifically as an insider in the Asian context. Conduct research as a team. One of the team members must be, now, I said earlier, one of the team members must be an insider. I'm also saying one of the team members must be an outsider. One who has a different set of lens, who will challenge, who is there to challenge you, your thinking. Or get a peer reviewer who is an outsider. Continuously engage in peer debriefing and critically evaluate what you are doing. All right? The question is, which is the better way to conduct qualitative research? As an insider or as an outsider? All right? So I end with a question. Do not ask me the answer.
Thank you, Dr. Arceli, for that very fine presentation. Insiders research perspective. You covered a lot of area. You talked about the insider-outsider continuum. You talked about the advantages, disadvantages, and also how you position yourself as an insider. Some questions we'll spend about 10 minutes in question and answer. And while the hands are coming up, Dr. Arceli, let me ask a question. When it comes to a perspective, is it necessary to position ourselves at the either end of the spectrum, either as an insider or an outsider, or it is really not the matter of extremes? You are somewhere along the continuum. You really cannot be in the extremes.
That's a very good question. And in fact, in the vignette that I shared, you will notice there that I swayed. At first, I thought I was an insider, right? But in the course of time, as I interacted with my participants, I found out that I did not perfectly fit. Not all of me fit. So it was like, there were times I feel like this, but there were times there was a very small percentage of them. Or there were even times, you remember I said there was a goal. And I was surprised because I was writing the experience that I wrote this in 2021. I did not know that I would speak about the insider perspective, but I was relating a reality that happened. So there was a time I said, okay, I perfectly fit. But I said there was a big wide gulf between us. I was on the other side, they were on the other side. But then later, I tried to reconcile that. And I, again, moved into the insider. And in the end, I said, I was an insider. So you could be, during the course, different stages of study, you could be an insider, outsider. But I would like to advise, that should be very clear from the very beginning, who you are. I took a stand as an insider. But just like the nature of qualitative research, it is unfolding, it is merging. And my advice is, do not be threatened by that. Do not be shaken. Oh, I thought I'm an insider. Now I'm an outsider. With this experience now in our study today, you will know that you will swing, in this continuum. But also, there is also like really clear distinction. There's another kind of continuum, Dr. Ken, based on your study. For example, I am studying AQRA, but I want to study the phenomenon of AQRA, and I call for those who have heard about AQRA, experienced about AQRA, like joined our conferences virtually, and then they are my participants. These people are strangers to me. That's one continuum. And I am an insider, but it's very far. But if I study AQRA, I'm among the founding officers of AQRA. Until now, I'm still involved in AQRA. I study AQRA. I'm a participant. So this is the other end of the continuum as an insider. So at first, Dr. Ken, I talked about the insider, outsider, continuum, and like swaying. It's like a scale like this one. Right now, I'm talking about the continuum from insider, outsider, and insider.
Well, thank you. A great answer. And I think what you have just said is, instead of trying to see whether an insider or an outsider perspective is important, everything depends on how can we swing, how can we oscillate. between these two extremes, and what is the best way to? Yes, I see a hand here, Dr. David.
Yeah, so there's a question from the online participants. This is from Evans Comendo. I believe she's Dr. Evans Comendo is faculty in Papua New Guinea. Does it mean, even though we are doing autoethnography, we can sometimes be outsiders when we ask questions to ourselves during the reflection?
Wow, that's a very nice question. Autoethnography is a design wherein you use yourself, or maybe you can be a team. For example, one autoethnography study that really has caught my attention, I think was the study. You remember we had a speaker in Cebu, Maria Laman. She did, I think, an autoethnography about teaching, the experience of teaching. So the participants, she was one, team friends, her friends, they were all teachers. And they would go to a cafe on a scheduled time. And they would talk about their experiences regarding teaching. Sometimes they would even write poetry. And then they would share their poetry about teaching. And so that's one example of autoethnography. You are a teacher, you are studying about your experiences as a teacher. Now the question is, can you swing? Because obviously this one is an insider's perspective. Can you swing to the outsider's perspective? I would say you should. You should. Why? Because I think in my vignette, I said, I step back and ask myself, this is happening. So who am I? How do I address these differences between my people, and me? And I realize I will respect and honor my heritage. They are my people, but I should also honor and embrace who I am at the present. So you step back. Yes, my answer to Evans is yes. You have to step back so you can see with an outsider's lens.
All right, some other questions. Do I see any hands? I think I have light against my face here, so I may not be able to see the hands. Yes.
Thank you once from Seth. Thank you, Dr. Ken. Thank you, Professor Arceli, for a great presentation. The disadvantages that were listed today with regard to insider perspective. To what extent should the researcher reflect and realize their influence on the study itself, knowing well that the researcher is being an instrument and biases are galore?
All right. I think the advantage is now we know what are the disadvantages of being an insider researcher. And toward the end of the presentation, you notice I gave some tips. Actually, those are tips to address those disadvantages. Like when you belong to a team, you will have calibration, you will have debriefing. So those making assumptions, being blindsided, you'll be able to address those.
There is another question, Dr. David, and then ma'am first, I think.
I'm concerned of the debriefing period in connection to being as an insider, as an outsider. In psychology, we cannot do debriefing. You are not allowed to do debriefing if you are not licensed. However, in Quali, we just debrief among ourselves after that. So what is the boundary, or what would be the difference and acceptability of our
debriefing in qualitative research? Yeah. I would say that the debriefing in psychology, when you are having a client, like somebody with a psychological disorder, is a bit different, but I think I would like to ask Dr. Sparrow to help me with this one. Because my understanding is when we debrief in qualitative research, we ask ourselves, in what way what did we do right today? And in what way, or what did we do wrong today? You remember I said that I stopped the interview and we went home because I noticed that we were doing it wrong. In that case, we did not ask anymore, what did we do right today? Because they were, of course, fuming why I stopped the interview. So I just asked, what do you think did we do wrong today? And we thought very hard because it was difficult. You know, I think for a long time, we have flattered ourselves that we are doing right all the time. So it really takes a good researcher to identify in what ways you have done wrong. Those are the things, usually what we reflect on the methodology. That's what we do in debriefing. Yet we still use the term debriefing. In a qualitative research institute, we still use the term debriefing, although we do not follow the debriefing process used in psychology. Yes, Dr. Sparrow.
Whenever we talk about debriefing, I always come to you, so that's very interesting. That's what I'm interested in as well. But I think, and the question that you asked is very, very important because it is definitely a concept that came from psychology, but borrowed it and contextualized it in quantitative research. I would say that when we deal with debriefing in qualitative research as researchers, we are not dealing with psychological problems that require an expert who's a psychologist. If we get, for example, interviewing at a certain point, in that study that I did in Uganda with the refugees, I was required by the ethics review board to prepare psychologists because they may reminisce some traumatic experience that they had that will create a serious psychological problem. So I hired a psychologist. And if I had to deal with that debriefing would be different from what we're talking about. Because that is beyond us. That's beyond us. But something like the example that she gave us, when a good Adventist young lady saying, I was happy to be pregnant out of wedlock, that will not create, yes, it's a shock, but it's still at the level where we can manage as researchers. The moment we go beyond that, we are required actually from qualitative research to hire an expert, a licensed psychologist to deal with emotional trauma.
So we will emphasize here that when you are dealing with sensitive topics, then you should have a psychologist in your team. When you are also dealing with children, I think that is also required, right, Dr. Sparrow? When the subjects are children, then you also should have a child psychologist. But the debriefing we're talking about here is simply in our trainings, what we emphasize is asking ourselves, are we doing the methodology correctly? In what ways can we improve? And now that we are talking about insider, outsider, we can ask ourselves those questions. Did we make assumptions that we did not clarify? Are there some issues that you think we have not seen?
Dr. David, I think some online questions are there.
Yeah, so the question runs along the line that like the question that you don't want to answer. So let me just modify the question a bit. So which do you enjoy better and why?
Being an insider or an outsider?
It's not asking which one is better, but which do you enjoy more? Insider or outsider? You personally.
Okay, I am now recalling the studies that I have conducted. My dissertation was on women university president. I would consider myself an insider at the time. I was vice president for academic affairs. I could relate. So I was insider. I enjoyed that very much because I was able to relate. Another one, that teen motherhood. I'm a woman. I was once a teen. I could relate also to that. And we had also with victims of the typhoon. Yeah, I could relate. I mean, I suffered from typhoon being here in the Philippines. You are not a Filipino if you say you have not suffered from typhoon. So I think almost all I was an insider. So maybe I will try to be an outsider.
Yeah. Just to add, the joys of being an outsider also can be great. Discovery, being a clean slate, experiencing shock. This can be exciting. Anyway, any other questions? Yes, Dr. Pondi.
Thank you, Dr. Seri. My question is a bit practical. Given that I've lived in this country for about 20 years, and about collecting data and then projecting data. So you talked about being insider or outsider. How is it for you to obtain data, especially if you are an outsider or a group of researchers working with an outsider? A group of researchers working with an outsider here in the Philippines, because we are talking about Asian countries and in relation to the Philippines. How easy is it for us to obtain that if we know that one of the members is an outsider?
All right. My general perception of my people, the Filipino people, is we are a very accommodating people. Although we do not like, we say yes. So, but when I say yes, I really mean yes. But generally, so as long as there is an insider, it's easy. And even if you are an outsider, and I think Dr. Spani can attest to this, he was always welcome, has been always welcome. But there are advantages. So when we did the teen motherhood study in a place that I was not familiar, I didn't know anyone, we ensured that there was somebody local from that place. Always, we had a local. When we studied that typhoon victims there was also a local. So, and if the team are insiders, but one is, shall we say, an American, no, there's no problem.
All right, I think we have had a great discussion, great Q&A session, and a lot of learning. Dr. Arceli, we're extremely happy and thankful for you that you dealt with this important topic area. And one thing that I take away from this session is that there is an insider's advantage and there is an outsider's advantage. And wisdom is in knowing when to use what and which is more advantageous to you as a qualitative researcher. With this, I would like to give you a certificate of recognition. Thank you very much and congratulations.